still stop.
Putting a dip in your hip, a glide in your stride. Welcome to the mothership, the home of the travelers of the universe, with shows throughout the week. Everything you want, everything you could need. From the paranormal to the supernatural, from the spiritual to the unknown, from emotions to comedy. You can find us at Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and so much more. This is R.I.F.T Nation Network, the RNN. And now, your featured show. Shall we begin?
Good evening, travelers and those alike. Welcome to RNN Presents, the Orion Effect podcast, right here on the R.I.F.T Nation Network on the Restream platform. I am the original hitman of social media, Ed Odell.
And I am Rhonda Dowdy.
Hi, y'all. How you doing? We are going to have an amazing show tonight. We have a wonderful individual with us tonight. She's in the green room right now, looking as magnificent as always, with her energy, and I can just feel it before she gets on.
I know.
And she's shaking her shaker.
She's always great fun.
Always. Oh wow, we've even got travelers already popping on. Hey. Hi, guys.
Hello, Mr. Ottersberg and Miss Sage and Lois Clark. All the travelers are joining us.
It's a family fest. What? Hi, hey, y'all. Here's another hey, y'all. Now.
That's Jim Livingston.
Okay, Jim, got to try it again, man.
He's over on the travelers page.
Okay, well, we're going to post that one more time. Jim, try that link and take your time with it. Hopefully, I know you're used to doing the studio thing now, but definitely try and hit that link to see if it works for you. I just posted it. Anyone that is new, as posted in the beginning, if you're new to Restream from Facebook, please hit the hyperstream that says https:/chat.restream.io/FB. Give it a shot. That allows us to see your profile name and your picture. And we know there are some. We found some difficulty through YouTube and got it fixed. We had a couple people saying they were not able to chat on YouTube in the last couple of shows, Tuesday, Saturday morning, and Saturday evening. But I think we got that fixed, travelers. Some of you are going to ask, hey, Ed, where's your hat? It's in Richmond. Yeah, I'm not in Richmond. I am in Roanoke, and unfortunately, it did not make it to my things to get into the car. So that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to let the beauty shine, if you will.
To let your hair down?
That's right. Let it show. She's blinded by the light. So tonight's show is going to be about ufology, pros and cons, the top 10s, the unusual, the strange, what is true and what is not true out there. From the pyramid, I'm watching hand signals. From the pyramid to all over. Okay, we're good. I'm having a blast. Jean's back there just being herself. We're going to bring her on in just a second. But as always, we're going to talk a little bit about the network. We're going to talk about some things that Rhonda's got coming up, some things we got coming up here, and different things. So we want to keep everybody in the loop. First, and foremost, the cups are here.
Nice.
The Traveler's Cups are here. Now, Rhonda, do you know how the traveler can get a cup?
I do. There's going to be a brand new show on the air, and there's going to be hints being dropped. And whoever can guess the name of the new show gets a free cup.
That's only for the travelers first. The first 5 cups are travelers only. They will get that special traveler's coffee cup. So we're excited about that. Hello, Facebook user. Hello, how are you? I see everyone is in. Now, again, if you're a Facebook user, hit the hyperlink. That'll allow us to see who you are if this is your first time on Restream with us. So please, we encourage you, please use that hyperlink. And I'm seeing everybody starting to chat. I love when they get chatty. So who we have on our show tonight, we're going to bring her on in just a minute out of the green room. But Rhonda, what kind of things have been going on? I know y'all got some wonderful things with FBRI and some of your projects at Belle Grove Plantation.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on. I tell you what, like it starts getting really busy, here in August. First thing I've got up is vacation. It starts next Saturday. I cannot wait. Then after that would be FPRI will be at the event at the Cabin on 360, the charity event. So we've got that coming up. There'll be Spirits Fest out at Belle Grove. I think it's the 7th, the weekend of September 7th. Ooh. Then we've got the weekend after that, we've got a paranormal investigation at Hamilton High School, and Saturday night is Dinner with a Ghost and a paranormal investigation. So that's the next one's coming up. And then I think the next thing, I think there might be an event at Belle Grove the weekend after Dinner with a Ghost. And then we've got Sage Paracon. So back to back.
You got a whole thing, don't you? You're just packed up. Hey, you got a healthy. Some would. No, I'm not going there. I was going to make a crack. I'm like, I got to remember, we can't even cuss anymore. So I got to be careful of that too. No more bang bangs. If it slips, it slips.
We really need the F-bomb now from Renee.
Yeah, we do. Renee, we need that F-bomb like ASAP. So we can hold it and drop it. Right. As far as the network itself, we are going to be at the cabin for the benefit as well. That Haunted Nights is putting on special tribute for Brad Sykes. We are also will be on site in September at the cabin once again, as we provide media coverage this year to their special event that they're having. And this event that they're having is to raise money for their flags, for all the cemeteries they go to, et cetera, et cetera. It just happens to be on the National Ghost Hunting Day, but it's not presented as such. Just want you all to be aware of that. We've got a lot of new shows that are getting ready to hit the air. You just saw the new one, Mystic Mayhem with Lisa and Lisa. And that's going to be a once-a-month show. We've got another show that's going to be twice a week or once a month. And then we've got another show sponsored by Jonathan Keyworth. And his show is out of the studios of the JK47 Paranormal Studio. That is not the name of the show. That is not the name. Figure out the name. Get yourself a mug, travelers. This is for travelers. This is the benefit of being a traveler. This is what it's about. After that, the mugs will be up for sale, anywhere from $12 to $15 a mug. So, hey, Dwayne, good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, without further ado, we are going to bring on the author, the woman, the ufologist, the quintessential necessity of astrology and ufology herself. And yep, we're going to bring her on. Hold that book up. She's in the house. Put that book up, girl.
Might as well get this out of the way and do a sound check. How do I sound, peeps? How do I sound, travelers?
Wonderful.
You sound great to me. So here's my book. You're going to see it now. You'll see it at the end. So make a note if you like UFO stuff, because this has all come true. I published this right before Halloween on 2018. It's on Amazon. Okay, unknown objects. That's the Air Force term, the military's term for what then became UFOs and what is now UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Okay,
Da-da-da-da-da.
UAPs.
Wait, I'm sorry. I got
But
to
in
do it.
2018, the Pentagon had not disclosed the reality of UFOs, and so it's like, well, I got a lot more to say about it. But make a note, and my name is Tricky. And by the way, if you ever want to email me, I'm just going to say it now and at the end. First name, last name at yahoo.com. I love to hear from for travelers. You know what I'm saying? I'm a light worker, number 111, synchronicity stuff. So
There
plug
it is.
now, plug later. Back to the studio. Here we are.
Okay, so check this out. I have to do it for us because you used the word phenomenon, right?
I did. I had to, because that's the name of a UFO. Now it's not unidentified flying object, which pretty much everybody could wrap their head around, but it does encompass something like a frisbee. If you didn't know it was a frisbee and it whizzes by, well, it appears to be flying and I don't know what it is. So yeah, that's an unidentified flying object. But now the whole thing, it is a phenomenon actually, and it's a phenomenon. It's so many levels that we could just take apart. But I have to say first, hey Keith's out there. Keith is my bud.
Keith is in the house. We want to say hi to Sandra. Hey Sandra, thank you for joining us as well. Everybody's starting to fill in the seats. That's awesome. I will tell you guys,
because this is going to be hot. It's a hot, sizzling summer show.
I'm going to tell y'all right now because our humors, y'all better buckle up because it's going to get hilarious. Every time that you say phenomenon, I'm going to go.
Are we going to chug? Chug? We could
chug. Oh, we could chug.
I could hydrate, chug. Nothing wrong with that, right?
And every time that word comes out, I'm going to go da 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 da.
Phenomenon.
Right. So unidentified flying object, easy to understand. Now it's unidentified. They kept the first word unidentified for whatever reason instead of mysterious. I don't know. Unidentified aerial. So up there above the horizon line is pretty much aerial. I'm very literal. I'm a word nerd. I get paid to train artificial intelligence. It's really scary. We could talk about that too. What's going on in AI? And I tell you what, it's not the doomsday that they're saying, but in any event, aerial and then phenomenon. So these are now whatever you see, orbs, pyramids, frisbees, whatever they are, it's a phenomenon now. So chug.
So
I said it. Filtered water made such a difference in my life for the better.
I hear you. I got my coffee, so I'm
reverse osmosis. I drink coffee too. Respect.
Rhonda, what are you drinking?
Water.
I need some Irish coffee. So I've got. Let's hit this up real quick because I got a question that I've been wanting to ask, and I've never asked this to anybody, but now you brought it up, so I got two things for you tonight. Two. First thing is, why did they feel the necessity to change the name?
Well, good question. And I see someone named Air Force One is also with my opinion that don't really like the term UAP, perhaps for different reasons. One is that one of the hardest things to do is to unlearn something you've learned. And actually, I think this is the reason why the term has changed. It's so hard to unlearn UFO and what a UFO is. I mean, let me just put this in a temporal context for people who aren't necessarily in their 20s and 30s, because clearly I'm not. I lived through the 1960s when I was a child, and 1970s and 80s, which I'll talk a little bit more about if we get to it. And UFO so when I was a kid, UFO meant the cover of a lurid pulp magazine or Buck Rogers. So ray guns and flying to other planets and moons and meeting other planetoids. And then we had, of course, the big radio scare with Orson Welles. Oh, it was after the market crash. It was at a vulnerable time in American history. People were on edge. And he had made a disclaimer at the very beginning of this very lengthy radio play he had written. Orson Welles, of course, a dark genius, a brilliant mind, and he was into dramatizations of things. He'd taken classic literature, Invasion of Martians, and made it into a brilliant radio play before television was big. And people who had tuned in after the disclaimer on their radios were under the impression that the Earth was under attack and that these craft had landed in New Jersey. I kid you not. And so people in that area were beginning to flood their local emergency phone. There was no 911 back then, but they were calling the sheriff's department, the police department, the phone operator, their next door neighbor, anybody they could. Is there any truth to the rumor that I'm about to be annihilated by people from another, or actually machines from another planet, right. Which was the pretext there. So we had that. We had a lot of then science fiction-y shows. I seek these out in the 1950s and 1960s. And then in the 1960s, the government, through the CIA, seriously seized control of the UFO narrative to the point where 70 years later, you can't use that brand anymore. It can't be UFO. It has to be UAP because nobody knows what it is except UFO researchers and travelers, people who pay attention to this kind of thing. It's rebranding at its finest, and it's a psyop, in my opinion, a psychological operation from the CIA, our friends, not really, who have spent over the decades trillions of dollars, not just dollars, taxpayer dollars. I pay taxes. I don't know about you, and I'm not judging. Trillions of dollars of my money over decades of my life have gone into black operations programs, the results of which I am likely never to see or from which to benefit. No, those rewards for hard work belong to the elite. And now we could spin off in all kinds of gory, grisly, kind of ghostly, gruesome-y new world order, sick sect stuff. Although I tend to stay positive, being a light worker myself. And I don't find anything particularly threatening about UFOs, which I'm going to continue to call them during this show. Yes, I'm a rebel. I know. I maintain Pluto was still a planet. And you know what? A year or two ago, the forces that be, the elite academics who decide these things, what's a planet and what isn't, they reversed. And every astrologer in the world said, I told you so. Pluto is a planet. It exerts planetary forces on Earth, no matter how far away it is. It's very dense. It's very dark. It's very varied. Flyby photographs of Pluto show it's not as bleak, perhaps, as it was described when I was going to school. I'm not sure they even bother to describe planets in school now, what with decades of dumbing down. I don't know. But we got a good education, and we were very curious out of the 1950s, which was out of the 1940s, World War II. In the early 1960s, there was quite an initiative through kids' books to explore space. It was 2 years before, 3 years, 4 years before Kennedy said, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon because it is there. In his Massachusetts dialect, because it is there. And that was quoting, of course, Edward Mallory, the guy who scaled Mount Everest, right? The tallest peak on Earth, because it is there. He was British, Okay, so we went to the moon, or did we? Or maybe we did, but there was photo ops too. It's just hard to keep up with it all sometimes when you live to be this long. You know what I'm saying? Changes, rearranges.
Change the ways. Changes. Stop it, Gene. You got to get me doing it. Go.
It's a dance party in the studio.
What?
You know why? I have to shout out Paul Rubens, who portrayed Pee Wee Herman. He danced around the studios a lot too, I'm sure of it. That man, weird as he was, made me laugh. Invariably made me laugh. No matter what.
Did not exist as long as they made people happy.
Shout out Pee Wee Herman.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. brilliant characterization. He kept in character for a long time. I saw the first interview he did out of character with a very nervous Jimmy Kimmel, who didn't really
Right?
know what to ask him.
I remember that. This is true. This is true. Um, and I'm making sure we're getting out there and people says, Dwayne saying, I love you guys, love the show. I'm going to sit back for a little bit and enjoy it. And no,
We
we did
did
not
not
land on
land
the
on the
moon.
moon.
Okay, you know what? This is not something that Ron and I have ever really sat and went, what's your opinion on this? But she's here and she's being quiet. So I get to pick on her. So, Rhonda,
I'm
what's
being
your-
quiet because I've got barking dogs right now. So that's why I'm being quiet. It's starting to thunder, and they're thinking somebody's knocking on the door.
Yeah, I meant to message you to let you know you got a thunderstorm coming. My bad.
Yeah. I figured it was coming from you to me, but yeah.
It's bad too. I will warn you. So, Rhonda, what's your thought about? It's still staying in the whole ufology. What's your thought on the moon landing?
Gosh, I'd like to believe it happened. I would like to believe we've done that, especially since people have lost their lives trying to do that. But is it possible it didn't happen? 100%.
Okay,
Never
hey,
say never, right? Never say
that's
never.
right.
I mean,
Well,
do
we
we
have to-
really know? No.
You know, the one thing is we do know that at least 10 people died in the supposedly moon program outside of being an astronaut. This is a
Right.
fact. And they were working for a form of the government or for NASA. They can't hide that. This is. Did we go to the moon? I think we have been to the moon, perhaps maybe even prior. I don't know. Did we make it after? Yeah, probably. But we did not go at the time they said because the technology was not updated at that point, so they say it was. Go ahead, come on, Gene. Love it.
Well, there's a lot of layers to that onion of a hypothesis, if you'll allow me to get a little sciencey on you.
Let's do it.
Word on NASA Street was that the amount of computer intelligence it took to go to the moon was minuscule by modern standards, laughable by modern standards. And the physics is actually very straightforward to go from Earth to the moon. It's well-known physics. There's not a lot of surprises. The real surprise was, could they pass through the Van Allen belt of radiation? And I'm on the fence about that because more recently there's been literature, and by more recently I mean in the last 5 years, there has been literature that I could dig up if I had to, that said by a renowned physicist, not a flake, but somebody with credentials, said, the reason we don't fly so much to the moon is because of the Van Allen belt. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either it's impassable and would fry anything inside the tin can of a spaceship they sent up in the 70s, right? Or, these things have to be lightweight, and in space, in other words, they have to be lightweight to get through Earth's dense atmosphere. Once they're in frictionless space, it's a joyride to the moon, right? And then they have little thruster engines that can correct for course correction to make sure they don't, a slight half a degree or a quarter of a degree, some fraction of a degree can make you miss the moon. It's that close. Frankly, it's close. It's not that far. The real interesting question to me is, and by the way, when I first saw a little sidebar on YouTube that said, if you like crop circles, which I do, you might like to see this thing about moon landing. Was it hoaxed, real or fake? I was like, who would doubt the moon landings were real? I mean, I grew up, I'm old enough to have seen it on television. They interrupted us at summer camp. It was in June or July. And we gathered in one of the huts, big assembly huts. And some parents had called and said, this is an historic occasion. We want our kids to see Neil Armstrong land on the moon. And so, set his foot on the moon. And so it happened. It did happen. We saw it happen, but Stanley Kubrick was also making movies at the same time, just saying. And there are reports of secret sound sets at about the same time, just saying. And the Life magazine covers were perfect. They were staged. They this could not have come from a Hasselhoff camera hanging off this guy's chest, pointing it. I mean, the lander, the moon, the earth all lined up perfectly. It just with the flag, it just didn't hold up under scrutiny. I'm not saying they didn't go. I'm just saying if they had footage, it was probably a lot grainier. Or I don't even know about the thing is about NASA. We never know for sure. We don't know. We don't know if astronauts have actually been lost. We don't know if we've been to the moon. We don't know anything. There's a lot of compelling visual imagery that suggests maybe we didn't go, or that some of those magazine covers were not from the moon. Okay, when you get indexing crosshairs from the camera, as explained by the guy who invented the camera in Germany, okay, Mr. H himself, he's saying, okay, so there's crosshairs that line up the frame, and the person taking the picture uses that to line up the subject in the middle, right? Crosshairs, okay, in every corner. So what we find in some images released by NASA is the crosshair behind a rock, behind some feature in the photograph. Can't be. This is superimposed. It should be on the top layer, if you will. In other words, NASA is busy. At first it was airbrushing because we didn't have the digital technology to do it. They airbrushed. They hired people to airbrush, and those people whistle blew, and because the CIA had spent decades and at that point billions of our taxpayer dollars discrediting such accounts. Any naysayer, ridicule, deny, discredit, ridicule. That's the litany. Deny, discredit, ridicule. And it happened over and over and over again. So you get that mindset, and it's hard to convince people otherwise. But the real question today in my mind is, yes, it's interesting. Did we go to the moon? And if so, how many times? Did we get through the Van Allen belt? Is it possible? Now what's on my mind is Elon Musk already colonizing Mars? Have we had colonies on Mars for a long time now? Not necessarily founded by Mr. Musk, but he might be, or his organization, if you will, of SpaceX, might be the operations side of a Mars colony. In other words, transportation, and they would be great, I would think, at maintaining biodomes. They're full of physicists and geniuses. This man surrounds himself with genius talent. He can have the best on Earth. Heck, I'd work for him if he'd hire me.
He's the king of rebranding too, because you mentioned how UFO is rebranded. He's the king of rebranding things that have been around a while, just like he did Twitter here in the last week. Now it's called X.
Oh, is SpaceX now just X?
Twitter is now X.
Oh, Twitter is X?
Yep.
I heard Twitter might be on the verge of bankruptcy.
There's a lot. There's
just last night I watched a video on that. So.
Yeah, and it's yeah.
I can imagine a world without Twitter. I started a Twitter account when it was fashionable. I mean, I opened an account, but I've never sent a single tweet because I know that it's CIA, NSA related. All this information just streams over them, and if you're the kind of person who doesn't investigate UFOs or UAPs, you probably don't care if all you do is post cute kittens and dance-a-thons, TikToky stuff. You don't care. You care about the NSA. These are the people who say when they get a little older, I don't care if my Fourth Amendment right to prevent warrantless search and seizure is violated because I have nothing worth stealing. And those people also say, I don't care if anyone suppresses my First Amendment right to free speech because I have nothing to say. Okay, that's good for you. But what about me? I got lots to say. And I will say it. See if I can do the
That's
Michael Jackson. Go all Michael Jackson on you. Rest in peace.
She's doing the
Just
job.
saying. So, is Musk on Mars? I don't know.
Okay, so let me bring this up. Go ahead, Rhonda. Go ahead.
I will say, Dwayne said Elon Musk is an idiot. There's no way he is colonizing anything that is
Yeah, I wasn't going to
on
post
brain.
that.
But you know what? He doesn't have to be brilliant. He surrounds himself with people who are brilliant.
I believe the man is
That's the way to
actually
do it.
brilliant. I believe the man is actually one of the smartest minds on earth, possibly, if you believe in reincarnation, the likes of Leonardo da Vinci, that kind of crazy smart. Now, you may not agree with his politics or his policies. You may not like the way he's managing Twitter. He doesn't care. He's one of the richest men on earth. This richest man goes back and forth depending on stock prices, basically, right? So he doesn't care what we think. He says he's a humanitarian, but some of his actions might suggest otherwise.
Sometimes
And
action speaks
in
louder.
reality, no human is strictly one thing or another. We're curious blends, which makes us interesting. I don't hold the man to any standard I wouldn't hold myself to. And I discount his wealth. I look at what he says and what he does. I don't discount his wealth. The only reason I'm hearing what he says and what he does is because he's one of the freaking richest men on earth. But he's not a George Soros. All right. And I don't want to get too political here, but if you look at what they do, that how they act out into the world, the companies they found and others they support through investments. And I'm getting a little off topic here, but not really, because it does have to do with government programs and stuff like that. Okay, if you look at Musk's accomplishments and how he represents himself to the public, it's a very different flavor and message from that of George Soros, Bill Gates, other very rich people on earth that we know about. And there's plenty of rich people on earth we never hear about because they don't seek publicity.
Yeah, well, one of them's trying to stay quiet for a reason. And, we're not getting political, but let's just say Bill Gates isn't always the greatest man on earth. And we'll just keep it at that. I'm not going down that rabbit hole tonight. Wow. The music decided to go, hey, we're in here. Well, I'm putting a cap on you. All right. So here's the thing. Here's another question. And I know this is one of the things that you really want to talk about. So I'm like, look, we just hit that 30-minute mark and we are just touching. I know, right? Welcome to this.
There's some good dialogue in the chat. And I hope right now, peeps, travelers, we can agree to disagree. Because that's the mound I'm pitching from. I respect your opinions. And I hope you will respect mine, even if we don't agree. That's just fine.
Amen, sister. They know this. They know they got the right to speak, but they know to be respectful too, because they know what'll happen. Flush. Just saying. Respect is everything on this network and on this show. So everybody knows that, and we do that. And I appreciate you saying such. Yeah. Let's get into something, because you made a point that you wanted to speak about it today. And Lord knows this can go longer than 30 minutes. But we're trying to keep certain things into a cap so we can keep rolling. So let me take it like this. Germany, 1930s and 40s. Project Blue Book, modern society. How do they connect?
What was the first one? What was the
1930, right?
No, what was the first one?
Germany.
I was just trying to stay connected, and I don't see all these topics as necessarily connected, but I can talk about all those topics. So, first topic. I'm sorry, is what?
Germany, 1930 and 1940s.
Okay, so word on ufology street was that Hitler and his cabinet were approached by aliens who one would suspect were not the most benevolent toward humankind. If they're approaching Hitler, who was anti-subhumans, which was everybody who wasn't an Aryan. Go look it up if you don't know what that means. It's a racial term. I'm not a racist, but that's what the Third Reich was all about. Well, part of what the Third Reich was all about. By the way, this was an occult. It's known to be an occult government. Hitler himself was personally fascinated by occult topics, and Nazis went around the world collecting occult objects as portrayed correctly, well, fictionally, but accurately in Indiana Jones movies. This is based
Agree.
on truth, okay? So,
Agree.
Hitler, an occultist, approached by nefarious, shall we say, aliens who really mean the bulk of humankind no particular good. And this after, allegedly, presumably all global heads of states, including President Truman in the United States, had been approached perhaps 6 months earlier by very positive light working aliens who said, nuclear proliferation is a problem on your planet. We have come to help you out with it. So, in exchange for our educating you on the dangers of nuclear proliferation and particularly exploding devices in your atmosphere above ground, in exchange for that and spiritual training to help you with the what we now call the awakening, the ascension, this great change of a metaphysical nature. It's physical metaphysical. You can't separate the two. The Earth in its galactic cycle and universal course going through a part of space. So imagine a racetrack. Earth is around our sun, sun's going around the galaxy, galaxy's going around the universe, everything's wheels and wheels and gyres and gyres. So apparently, according to what I understand of this, the significance of December 21st, 1221 21, wasn't it? 12, 21, 12, December 21st, 2012, when the Mayan long count ended. Presumably, the most credible explanation I've read of that or heard of that was that the Mayan count, the long count, to find that point in time space where our planet in our solar system, in our galaxy, actually, our planet in its solar system is the furthest away from the galactic center. And from there on out, we start a course back toward the galactic center. This is astronomy stuff, folks. And as we get closer to the galactic center, on the way, we hit something like a debris field. We hit some anomalous space. And that messes with our solar system. It messes with us. And to escape perhaps terrestrial cataclysm that's being suggested in many texts, whether you believe it or not, and it may not even happen in our lifetime or in 100 or 500 years. It's not exactly clear on my mind when this happens, but it's thought to be a regular repeated pattern of devastation on Earth. And if we don't uplift ourselves spiritually and in consciousness, which ETs can apparently do and would help us do, when they approach Truman, we will help you get ready for this massive shift of consciousness. You need a few generations to prepare for this, probably, is what I'm imagining the conversation went. And Truman's like, okay, what do we have to do? You have to lay down your nuclear arms. And that was the end of the conversation. Because in 1945, no way was the United States going to lay down its nuclear arms because we were staging for a Cold War with Russia. Actually, the Soviet Socialist Republic, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. I mean, this is how far back this goes. And if you don't study history or you didn't live through it, if you weren't paying it, you did live through it, you weren't paying attention. I get it. I don't like scrapbooking. I don't pay attention to scrapbooking, but I do care about what's happening in the superstructures of our government. When you get secretly operating organizations such as the CIA and the NSC, National Security Council, which morphed later into the NSA, when you get these unaccountable, they don't have to account for how they spend their money. It's not that they don't know how they spend their money, they know, but they don't have to tell the taxpayers who are funding these projects how they account for their money. And so therefore, a culture of, oh, I don't give a what. I just don't give a what about spending other people's money. Let's go crazy. Let's have all kinds of operations and let's just do whatever we want. Unbridled enthusiasm to keep the public in the dark while realizing the gains of advanced technologies. But back to Hitler, back to World War II. So Hitler and you can imagine Hitler. If light workers went to Hitler, they probably didn't even go to Hitler. They didn't waste their time. Although apparently wasting time is a human construct on Earth, not a. Yeah, I mean, aliens don't think about wasting time. You exist or you don't. Basically, that's the substance of.
We waste their time. That's the
Well, that could be. So aliens go to Truman. Good aliens go to Truman, just to paraphrase. And Truman says, "Heck to the no, we can't." He doesn't say anything. He's a farm boy. He asks his advisors, and they say, "Heck to the no," and no. That puts the schnotz on that. 6 months later or so, these gray aliens, which represent some other not crazy about humans races of aliens, approach the same or comparable world leaders and say, "Hey, we got a new deal for you. We got your new deal right here. We'll give you the technology in exchange for places to land on Earth and recreate. We want some biological sampling. We want to take plants and animals, including humans. We want to study everything. We're curious about you. And we want you to keep our existence secret." I mean, that last one I'm kind of positing, but there has to be a reason why such a cover up for so long, and now coming out that it was a fraud without the kind of finger pointing and accountability I was sure the public would demand after 70 years, 75 years of cover up. There's been nothing, no recrimination.
Nobody's blinking an eye. They're just like,
no, nobody cares. They're like, okay, so there's aliens. Whoop-de-doo. So wait, is that because now we have been trained in that thought process? Video games, movies, social media, have we now become trained to accept the fact that there's other life forms other than humans out there finally?
Well, that was the question. 1945, 1946 was to the world leaders. Are humans mature enough to accept the reality of intelligences of beings that flies craft or something that we comprehend in our space-time, in our materialism? We regard them as, they get around, and they probably bioengineered us. Let's face it. If you go back to the Sumerian texts, it's pretty clear we were bioengineered from proto-humans to mine gold in the hot African sun. We could talk about that. That's one of my favorite topics.
As far as that goes, what I'm going to say, we were created. Doesn't matter by who. They're still our creator. Why does it matter what they look like? Because it is our perception on what we have been taught through religion and spiritualism that it has a specific figure and looks a specific way. So
I couldn't agree more. And so for the past 75 years, the CIA could have spent first millions and then billions and now trillions of taxpayer dollars educating the public, we the people, and around the world for that matter, that UFOs are real, and gotten us ready for the fact that some world religions maybe didn't quite get it right. But frankly, the existence of aliens doesn't refute the existence of God, because aliens all say there is God. Right. There is God. It's a force. It's not a person. It's a force. And it's irrefutable. It's unstoppable. It's everything that we know about God, and probably a lot more we can't ever know because it's unknowable and unpronounceable.
Yes. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Right? Exactly.
It's mystic. It's literally mystic. It's mystic. And I think the U.S. public could have handled it after World War II. And I'm not the only one. Forrestal, first Secretary of the Navy, a hero in World War II, was advising Truman. And he was one of the very forward this man was a progressive mind, and he made things real. Okay, so in the Navy, before there actually in the armed services before there was a Navy, he sought to integrate racially the military. He was the first officer to integrate his troops with Black people and white people enlisted together, fighting side by side, not separate units. No, integrated units. True. He said, it's the 1940s. We have to get hip, people. We have to we got to get in step,
This is
right?
very
We got
true.
a jitterbug to the truth.
That's
And
right.
so he said, I think the public could handle the truth, especially, he probably said, I have no, but my thinking is, I know he said, yes, they could handle it. My thinking is that his thinking would be along the line of many informed people, which would be if we educated them to accept it as a truth and ease them over this difficult acceptance that God is not some white guy sitting on a cloud with a harp. He's not. It's not. It's not that. And if you do believe that, I respect you, but I respectfully disagree. That's not what it's about, and it never was.
Bravo. Well
Yeah.
said. Well said. I'm also going to step on the side, and I'm going to support you on this, Gene. Um, we have the open side, and there's a closed side. Here we have von Braun with his double-edged sword of General LeMay doing their thing. So you have the wanted to be open, and then everything needs to be hush hush. Honesty, best policy, Majestic 12, Braun, Admiral LeMay, and their cabinet. So there's that catch 22 again. And maybe some of von Braun's material, backed up by Admiral LeMay, General LeMay, however you like to call him, he was the head of the Army Air Corps. Perhaps they were working on their own projects to make it seem as we move into Project Blue Book.
Speculation, Your Honor. But I did want to get back to. I keep digressing from the task. So imagine that the good aliens have been turned down, and then the bad aliens say we're going to give you high tech, and all you have to do is these few things. And that deal was struck by probably every nation in the world
Yeah.
because they were all the power nations that were involved in nuclear development. They all struck the same deal, apparently. Okay, some of those nations were a little slow to start with their space programs, but it's think of all the things that happened all at the same time, a coalescence of technology that some people have attributed to just one of those things like the Renaissance, just one of those things that happened historically. So we had computers, we had fiber optics, Velcro, just to get a little more banal, Post-it notes, even
Okay,
more
right. Say
banal.
sticky notes.
I met the guy who invented what we know as Pampers, adult diapers, and he invented them for space for astronauts. And then after, and he had kept the rights, the commercial rights for his patent, and he
Right.
became very wealthy from selling this brilliant technology. So yes, there are brilliant people
It's diapers.
involved in the space program. No big surprise there. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up with Forrestal. The sad story of Forrestal is that as a proponent of the maturity of the American public after World War II, that yes, we could handle the truth about UFOs. For that, he was diagnosed with clinical depression, or so the cover story goes, the story we know goes, diagnosed with clinical depression by his own admission, and uh, inpatient, what do you call it, where you check into a hospital. He checked into a military hospital that's very well known. The name escapes me, but he checked in. He was treated with the treatment of the day for clinical depression, which, believe it or not, was insulin shots, which when you don't have diabetes can be a real mess up physiologically. So he was in a room on a high floor, and the next thing we know, he's out the room window, dangling by bed sheets that are knotted together. So it's ruled a suicide by the forces that be, except that investigators on the scene, including UFO researchers and such people, noted that there was broken glass on the windowsill and signs of a struggle, that this man didn't go peacefully over the sill. He was shoved out and drugged ahead of time and shoved out. So, drugged with insulin, I should say, which again was the standard treatment for his diagnosis. Did he really have clinical depression? Is it really treated with insulin? I think now we think it isn't. If whether he had it or not, it's not a good treatment. So, he was in some case, on the one hand, he was the victim of his times, the technology of his times medically. On the other hand, he was literally the victim of the CIA, almost certainly. Now, I'm alleging all this, but my spidey sense says, yes, that all happened. And the thing about it is, if you were a peer of Forrestal, first Secretary of the Navy ever in the United States, and you watched him get offed by the CIA, what message would that send to you? It would suggest to you that perhaps you should mind your P's and Q's, and perhaps the American public, maybe they aren't as mature as we first thought. Maybe they can't handle the truth. Maybe we really do need to silence those opposing voices to the official narrative that they're an airspace threat. These things are an airspace threat. We can't control them, therefore they're a threat, even though they've never done anything that wasn't defensive that I know of.
Exactly.
I've not heard of any occupant of any UFO or any unmanned UFO for that matter
Let me speak on this real quick.
gratuitously wreaking mayhem like we saw in War of the Worlds.
Exactly.
Our pal
I want to back up something you just said.
Orson Welles.
I'm going to back it up by actual encounter. I've got a box. I'm not going to tell anybody where it's at, but it's 5 3-inch binders deep and long. These are the memoirs of my father, who was in the Army, Air Corps, Air Force Intelligence. All and every encounter that was documented, never was there internal flight combat simulation between any object and the United States Army Air Corps between the times of 1939 to 1946. Nothing documented. I can go on the record and honestly say that. Now, after 46, who knows? Did we get a little too egotistical, a little too big for our pants and try to go, oh, look, we got better equipment. Let's try to antagonize, which we're good at, something. It's possible. It is possible. But I can say during World War II, there wasn't any air conflict. In fact, we avoided them like the plague.
Avoided who? Sorry, I'm trying to follow along here.
Any unknown flying object.
Oh, we tried to bring him down. In fact, early on, after World
In
War II,
California, we did.
the U.S. military determined through accident that thunderstorms bring them down. And so they looked at what is it about thunderstorms that can bring these things down. It had to do with their anti-grav, what we now know to be their anti-grav propulsion systems, evidently or allegedly. And so they started experimenting along those lines, and they discovered that radar also jams their anti-grav propulsion and brings them down. So they started crashing UFOs, which is now in the news, by the way. Whistleblowers coming forth now that the Pentagon has admitted the existence of these things. We don't know what they are. They won't admit the existence of the things that made them or drive them around. They're not commenting on ET, but yeah, the craft are real. We just don't know where they come from or who's responsible, and therefore they constitute an airspace threat. Exactly. So we're going to study them really hard. Hey, they started studying after Truman. They started studying really hard when Truman said, I don't know anything about this. I'm a farm boy. He said, let's get some great scholastic minds on this. And so they got some great scholastic minds huddled together from the Ivy League colleges around universities around the nation, and these eggheads, and I'm one, so I use it as a term of endearment. I'm an egghead. These eggheads got together and they said, what do you think based on the evidence? And they said, I think there's something to this. And I think it warrants further study. And I think it might upset the general population. I have to agree that there is a potential there for putting, throwing a monkey wrench in the Christian paradigm. Let's just call it what it was.
Agreed.
And it also throws a Christian in the Muslim paradigm. And again, I'm not a racist. Well, maybe, but this is not a racist statement. And I'm not admitting to racism. Don't twist my words, people. I'm just saying what happened. Okay, I'm trying the best I can for you who didn't live through it. And I didn't live through all of this, but they come, they have the technology. People who oppose the secret cover-up get offed. And so what's next? What's next is the early 1950s, and Eisenhower comes in. Truman's out, Eisenhower's in, and Eisenhower is dealing with this study group that Truman formed, these eggheads. And the eggheads are saying, We are sure there's something to this, but it is so big and beyond our comprehension that it will take years of study to figure this out. And in the meantime, we don't dictate public policy, but you might want to tread lightly. So Eisenhower gets this intel and he goes, all right, eggheads out, Project Blue Book in. Project Blue Book as a and it didn't happen immediately, but basically the transition went from scholastic study under Truman to now the militarization of this knowledge that there is a force that we cannot control that's building spacecraft and doing all kinds of stuff. And they want treaties with us. And we have treaties with them, and they're coming and they're doing their things. And now people are becoming aware. There was a wave of UFO sightings in the 1940s. Oh my gosh, in the late 1940s, as magnified by Roswell, the Roswell crash, chapter 3. It's chapter 3 in my book. It's not chapter 1, chapter 3, because by already we had Foo Fighters after World War I, chapter 1, and we had 2 weeks before Roswell, the Kenneth Arnold sighting, chapter 2. And actually there's a chapter 0, which happened in Missouri. In Missouri, there was a crash in 1941 that was covered up, and a reverend was called out to give last rites to the passengers of this craft. And when he got there, he assumed it would be some kind of airplane. When he got there, he described to his family that these bodies were not human. And as a good Christian, now, here's the dilemma. Here's part of what they were thinking about by 1947, 1946, because in 1941, a reverend had arrived to give last rites to these otherworldly beings that didn't make it after the crash. And he didn't want to give them last rites. He said, something tells me they're not Christians. Just a hunch.
Yep.
And so he poked his head into the craft by his own account. He left a letter to his family, a granddaughter. And he left a letter to his family. He documented his experience, and she made it public in the 1970s. There are interviews, if you care to look this up. He looked around. He saw lights. He saw wires. He saw some mayhem. He probably smells some nasty smells. I'm speculating there, but if you think about what a crash craft might look or sound like, and if you or smell like and appear to be, with bodies thrown out of it, and the bodies had been stacked, well, not stacked, but laid side by side on the ground. So there was an attempt made to show respect to these beings that had crashed in 1941, but the Christian reverend refused to give last rites, and thinking they're not baptized, they're not ordained. It would be heresy for me to do so. So this was the kind of moral dilemma and ethical dilemma weighing on people's minds after World War II. In the 50s, things were getting a little more hip and progressive. And agnosticism was raising its head culturally in the United States. Both of my parents left their native faiths and became agnostics, and told me growing up, you should learn about every world religion and treat everybody with kindness and tolerance and form your own views, whatever feels right for you. But we are not sure about the God thing. Okay, for the record, I am sure about the God thing, and I am sure that aliens are here and among us, and that the aliens who came in the late 1940s were a special group, if you will, a special cadre or wave or force of their own, because I'm convinced that many aliens are on Earth and have been on Earth before there were humans.
Yeah.
That they helped terraform the Earth. I know this sounds radical, perhaps, to some people who haven't studied up on this stuff, but a case can be made, shall we say. I'm not saying you should believe this or that I necessarily believe it, but a case can be made, per some of the oldest texts on the Earth, that they showed up to make humans to slave in the hot African sun. If they could do that, there's one book I've read that said that. It's called Interview with an Alien. If you care to look that up, Interview with an Alien. If you read it all the way through, as I did one summer, it's a shocker. Basically, the universes are run by biotech companies that make planets. it sounds like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at this point. They create planets and then they destroy planets. They're
Hey,
Kali.
Sarah, bring me
They're
a white
Kali. They create, they destroy. It depends on their mood. The day of the week. Oh, wait, we don't have weeks. We're immortal. We don't do time. Time's for you humans. Can't even telepath with us. What good are you? Humans, like ants in an ant farm. But some of them like us. Go figure. We're like cute little kittens or something, I guess. Some of them like us. Some of them are neutral, and some of them hate our guts and want to eat us. What are you gonna do? So in the 50s, CIA cover up goes forward, and then we have in the early 60s we have the shocker, Betty and Barney Hill.
Hold on. Can we continue this show? Because we're at the top of the hour.
I'm good for a bit.
What?
Are you good? You want to continue?
What are you saying to me? We're done, or we need to?
Well, we were almost at the top. We only do an hour now, but if you want to continue, Rhonda, if I know you've got that other show coming up, but if
not
you're
till 9:00, and that's just road song music. So let's do it.
Jean, you want to keep going?
What do the travelers think?
Guys.
There's at least one very chatty traveler.
Yeah, well,
I won't name names.
Travelers.
And let's take this pause.
Yeah.
For me to shout out Rhonda. First time I've basked in your eminence, and I just want to say it's a pleasure to meet you. And you're as awesome as I knew you would be if you're on this show co-hosting. Right? It stands to reason, but I feel the love.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is awesome. And thank you, Jean, for saying that. She's an amazing hostess. She really has been since she's come, and she's helped expand this show and make it anew. So yes.
Thank you.
Check out that book. Oh no, but you deserve it.
It all came true. I've got to talk about Bob Lazar before we
will.
Tonight.
Let's do this. Let's take about a 3-minute break. 3-minute break. And then
I love to count.
We will keep rolling with this one. Travelers, if you're good, we're going to take our break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue this amazing journey with Jean and Rhonda, and let's see where we end up, because we know where we're heading for. I didn't know if we could get it all in tonight, but maybe we can get in a series saying the UFO communication or alien communication with Jean Claire Broida.
And peeps, travelers listening, chatting, ask questions if you got stuff on your mind, topics. What I'm here for you. I'm here for us. Yes. See you in 3.
We'll be back in about 3 minutes. And travelers, we're back. Thank you for that momentary. There's a couple of questions come out. We're going to keep rolling. And yes, Dwayne, you are on target tonight as always. Thank you, sir. I want to get to one thing. I know headed to 7-Eleven for a burrito. Go get your burrito, man. Uh, gee, he also wanted to say you're absolutely awesome. For
Aw.
I don't want to miss out on the conversation, so I will eat the can of chili that I have in the
I
cupboard.
know I am, but what are you? Rest in peace, Paul Rubens. Let me spit on my. You can dress me up, but you.
Can't take you out anywhere, huh? Oh, there you go. Audra's joined us. Miss Audra's
Audra,
here.
my main fan. Oh, fangirl. Hey.
She made it. She made it. Um,
Hey. I told
Wayne
her
said,
I'm on the Orion Effect if you can find it.
and you
Like
know,
right
you can
now.
find
I'm
us.
checking, I'm in the green room waiting to come on. And I'm texting her. I'm like, hey, because she always shows up. She always finds me. She's awesome, Audra. Yeah, and she asks great questions too. So let's get back to it. What do you say? What do you
Great,
say? We
great.
have questions. I have answers. They may not be correct, but hey, I'll let you know when it's my opinion.
That's right. That's right. I love this, and this has been this amazing first hour. And this is one of those shows that we decided to extend it. We have that capability now.
I
We
knew it
have
was coming. I like when I was like, "Oh, we've got Gene. We're going more than an hour."
love it. Um, and the first hour was truly trail breaking. I love it. I want to say something real quick. I've had Jean on this show 5 times. She has been with us 5 times now. This is amazing. Check out her book. It's in the chat links. Definitely look at it's talking with you. Now, I also want to say Rhonda has been with us just about a year now.
Yeah,
And
it has been like slightly a little over a year.
yes, and I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that she works primarily with the RNN, but
Yep,
she does work with. Let's give props to our sister network, the Vibe. So she is working with Ryan a little bit on the side too.
I do. I do. Sometimes they call me in for a female perspective on. Actually, I did just kind of help him out some when one of his co-hosts was doing other things, but now he invites me to help out. And if anybody's interested after this show, go to the freaking awesome paranormal show on YouTube tonight because him and CR, who is his new co-host, have put together. It's like our favorite road trip songs. So we're having an hour show just listening to our favorite, we all pick some songs and that's what we're doing.
Watch the
Sounds like
copyright.
fun.
You know what I'm
Sounds
saying?
like fun.
That's why we're doing it on YouTube and not Facebook. Just blurbs of songs. So
There it is. So check it out after this. There's so many wonderful vidcasts and podcasts are out right now. This show was one of the original Sunday night shows. This show stepped it up when we started was Sunday, and the time has changed to make it easier for the travelers, for those who have to work. But we thought, Sunday was a perfect. Hey, let's get your knowledge in. Let's feed you more of what we can on Sundays. That's why I brought and created this show, which was the original Rift Radio, which is now, of course, the Orion Effect on Sundays. And now there's magnificent shows that are on Sundays too, throughout. So catch those shows after the fact or catch them when they're going, just like Rhonda was talking about. We are presented by the RNN Productions. That's Rift Nation Network. We're now on all platforms and we're coming to you live. This is a live show, non recorded. So if you missed the show, you can check the archive. So check us out. So, with that being said, we were just coming out of the 50s and we had just started talking about getting into Project Blue Book. Now,
Right.
there is
That was your second talking point, as I recall. You wanted to
yes.
yeah,
connect dots. Before we go there, I'm just curious. We have a nice complement of travelers with us tonight. I love Rift Network. I love what you're doing. I love what you've done with the place.
Thank you.
Travelers, you seem interested in this topic. I used to have a show called Taboo Topics with Jean Broida. Would you appreciate or tune in to such a show or something similar where we discuss? See, the thing about taboo topics is it's so encompassing, right?
True.
UFOs are one thing, but there's so much that, I mean, just no holds barred, basically. It's been over a year. It's been a year and 3 months on hiatus because of my life being tumultuous. But I'm coming out of the rapids, and I can see the clear river ahead, the tranquility, and I'm going to have a little more time toward the end of the year. So just curious if that would be of interest. And I'm seeing some positivity. So Project Blue
I
Book.
would tune in.
Wait. Are
Blue Book.
you saying you may be wanting to come home?
I've always been home, but yes, yes, Ed, yes, and Rhonda,
Woohoo!
yes, and travelers, yes.
Woo!
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Once a traveler, always a traveler, for one thing. And I, I, I struggle myself with some topics. I take some things for granted, and I need to remind myself on air that not everyone has the has the point of view that I have, has the believes what I believe, right? So for me, I believe in reincarnation. I remember past lives. For me, it's a real thing. I'm not saying everybody in the world is involved in this scheme or paradigm. I don't know. I'm not every other people. All I know is about me. All right. So I'm just, I'm adrift like a traveler. Yeah. And those of us who are adrift and traveling, metaphysically speaking, on this very physical plane, okay, we're incarnated in a physical body, but we have consciousnesses that are floating above, if you will, or around. I can see Aurora, dude. Okay, fine. Whatever. When you get metaphysical, all of a sudden your peer group shrinks, and the number of people who really want to talk to you kind of shrinks as well, because it's not their interest. It's like as if you came up to me and said, oh, all of a sudden I'm into scrapbooking. I would say, okay, that's cool. And do you want to go with me Wednesday night to a scrapbooking club meeting? Because it's awesome. There's some great people that I think you'd really like it. I'm like, oh, I might take a pass on that. I might go just to see who's there, but the topic alone would not lure me, right?
Yeah.
Whereas anything UFO or paranormal intrigues me because it's so overwhelmingly self-evident that there's much more going on than the five senses can account for. So we're into the paranormal at that point. In other words, normal means five senses based. Once you get outside of that, which is, by the way, very limiting in terms of a definition, once you get outside of that, it's not hard to do. And
Nope.
you can train the ESP muscle, if you will. You can get better at ESP. I talked to Russell Targ about that. I got my his free ESP trainer from any app store that you have, whatever your device happens to be. Go to the app store, look for ESP space trainer, and you can download this free app that Russell Targ and cohorts developed to get to strengthen your ESP muscle. And it's selections, it's guessing or intuiting. You start guessing and then you learn how it feels to guess correctly, and that becomes intuiting. You do biofeedback on yourself, basically, and there are reinforcements in the app to make you feel good when you make the right choice. So starts with 1 out of 2 probability, that's 50%. Then the next trainer level is threes, 33 and a third percent, and then fours, 25%, and fives and sixes, and that's as high as it goes. You can do the percentages yourself if you care to. And so when you're sitting in your car at a traffic light, when you're in a checkout line from the nether regions, and you want to just pass a little time, you could pull this trainer out and practice on your ESP and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I
Nice.
believe in all that stuff. I always have. It was intuitive as a child that there's a lot more going on. I was probably abducted as a child before I could speak, which is a typical modus operandus amongst aliens. And those people talk about UFOs incessantly. What are you going to do? There's always one. You know what I mean? There's
Always
always
one.
one kid.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're right. You're so awesome. And actually, I put her information out already, so I'll make sure it goes back out on the network again. So thank you, Dwayne, for asking and saying such, and it will come back out. So I do not want to cut this short. I want to keep this train rolling for tonight because we are extending it for you because we need that. So I'm going to hand it back over to you and let's go into Blue Book and beyond.
All right. And when we need to go, if we need to break, I can go. I can just go. So you tell me when we need to stop.
We've got
Uh,
about another 40 minutes to go.
and I
Well,
did want to mention that you can, if you wish to, I see some listeners, some travelers would like to perhaps stay in touch and continue a dialogue. I welcome that. Email's pretty easy. First name, last name, no space. First name, last name at yahoo.com. It's that easy.
Yahoo!
Now,
And
please
you
keep
can
it
get in touch
nice.
with
Keep it
her.
nice and above the belt. Come on now.
You can also get in touch with her through Rift Nation Network.
That's right.
Just PM us there, or you can go to Rift Nation Network at gmail.com. Send us an email and we can get you in contact with her as well.
Yep. Okay. So, Project Blue Book. We can be brief about this because its history is relatively well known. It sprang out of the government's desire, headed by President Eisenhower in the 1950s. He was reelected, as memory serves, so he did 8 years. And in that time, because he was a war hero, let's face it, again, like his politics or not, he was indisputably a war hero of World War II, and that was the big thing after World War II: rewarding war heroes, okay, or killing them if you were Forrestal. What? What? What?
What in the hell?
Very early on, we who study the phenomenon, which is not merely the phenomenon in the sky, the phenomenon of our U.S. government's response to it. Okay, so the military stepped in under Eisenhower to this topic and said, "Eggheads, you're dismissed. Thank you for your help. We understand now that we don't understand anything, and so therefore, let's whip up a taxpayer funded group to investigate UFOs, at least on the surface. Well, no, not on the surface, to genuinely investigate UFOs, because we, the government, the military, we really do want to know. So let's have these people, these brains, investigate this. Almost all of them were military, except for Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was an astrophysicist. He was the civilian, and if you watch that show, the first couple of episodes were pretty good because he was brought on as a civilian scientist to a military project whose task actually was to debunk UFOs. That was the ultimate. The conclusion of the project was written before the project began. Okay,
Exactly.
that's what was going on there. And when Hynek realized that, he started out as a real poster boy for the cover up, and he was the guy who said in a press release that most unidentified flying object sightings can be attributed to clearly terrestrial phenomena, such as, and including, this is where this famous quote comes from, the planet Venus or swamp gas. So the press ran with swamp gas, and ufologists, proto fledgling ufologists, ran with this because this was back in the early 1960s, now late 1950s, early 1960s. He said, this is you can look this up, people. I'm not making this up. He said, it's probably something easily explained. And the other thing was ball lightning, Elmo's fire. That was a thing, Elmo's
Yes.
fire, which is a real thing. You could look it up.
And we deal
There
with
were
them.
instances where people did see that ball lightning, Elmo's fire. I'm not saying that every case was real. I'm just saying that what Project Blue Book did find was that out of the 400 some cases they looked into, the 30 or so were unexplained, genuinely unexplained. And because of that, Hynek at that point did a reverse of opinion and approach to the topic, because even though the scientific conclusions were this subject is real and it warrants more study, more serious, credible, government funded study at taxpayers' expense, the government came back with, we're going to ignore those 30 anomalous cases, the real cases, and we're going to tell the public there's nothing to it. And at that point, Hynek said, ooh, so that's who I work for, actually. And he did a complete reversal and became one of the leading UFO believer, or not, it's not even belief, as I've said in the past. UFO acceptance is not belief, because belief has to do with faith and religion. Once I started looking seriously into this topic, it became very clear very early that our government has known about this since day one, since before day one. Who knows how long our government's been aware of this phenomenon?
Well, you
But
know,
they
the
only
story about
seriously
George
began
Washington.
studying it and covering it up after World War II. So that's the significance of Project Blue Book, meant to cover up. And your third talking point, was it Werner von Braun?
No, we're going past that. Now we're going to go
Oh,
into the
past that,
modern.
because this is we could spend a whole show on this guy. A
Oh, yeah.
Nazi, not a sympathizer, a Nazi rocket scientist brought over on Project Paperclip after World War II, which was the American project to bring over German scientists of great intelligence and repute in their own country and divide them up between the United States and the USSR. Some people don't understand that. There was a divvying going on. And what
Exactly.
actually happened historically is that the USSR got the better physicists, which is why they launched Sputnik and a dog and a monkey. Actually, it was Sputnik and a monkey and a dog into space before the United States had anything. And those three events precipitated JFK's famous speech, "We're going to the moon, not because we
It's
can.
easy, but because it's
Basically,
hard.
because we can, because it is there."
That's right.
Yeah, not because it is easy, because it is hard.
That's right.
Because it is hard. That's right.
Very true.
And we did. I think we did go to the moon. I think the photos were shit. Pardon my. Oh, we can't say that. The photos were substandard, and
Damn.
they weren't suitable for the cover of Look magazine. Let's put it that way. And so they called in the likes of, in fact, if not in fact, the guy who produced and directed. Actually, I don't know that he produced, but he certainly directed 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, in
Stanley
fact.
Kubrick, the genius, another genius, brought in to help NASA cover up,
And he was
right,
one
the
of
reality. So they're
he was
airbrushing.
one of-
They've hired Stanley Kubrick to do cover shots for Look magazine. I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon. I'm not sure. I don't know. There's so much obfuscation. Who can know what's true?
and NASA gave them one of only two of the optical lens to create. He had that lens that NASA made to use for 2001. That's why it had optical illusions. Neither one of those lenses can be found now. Just a little history out there for you.
Interesting.
You know what else can't be found?
That
The
damn
original
audio
footage.
equipment.
The original footage of the moon landing, or something around that time. If not the original footage, the data basically surrounding that project.
Yep.
Just what?
Suddenly just
The
disappeared.
data,
And they said
and
they
the
recorded
excuse
over it.
was the data was being stored at a time when computer storage was expensive. And I remember when that was.
Yeah.
It was expensive, and NASA, funded by taxpayer money, decided in its infinite wisdom. And at the time, I mean, they had to choose up apparently, but it just doesn't stand up to me reasonably that they would delete those files. If they had to, we got to free up some disk space. What are we going to sacrifice? Let's sacrifice the data on the first moon landing.
One
I
of the
just
greatest
don't
historic
believe it.
moments of humankind.
It doesn't hold water, travelers, does it?
No.
I think it was a lie, part of the big lie that I've grown up with, that recently has been debunked by our own government. That yes, UFOs or UAPs exist. We don't know what they are. We don't know who's driving or making them. But
Now that brings us to our
now the military can come forward and whistleblow without recrimination, without that deny, discredit, ridicule program. The CIA has backed off on that. You can tell by the news broadcasts. The broadcasters don't come on and smirk and say, no, our woman on the street has the latest UFO sighting. aren't doing that anymore. It's like one of the first ones was out of Breckenridge, Colorado. A UFO hovered. This was 25, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, over Breckenridge, Colorado, a ski town. Okay, so seasonal. I forget what season it was, but in any event, this UFO hovered over Main Street, basically, in sight, hovered. And so there was a picture in the local newspaper of a woman looking up and a cop standing next to her, and he was pointing up. He was showing the woman where the UFO was, or speaking of it to her. They're both, and so now all of a sudden it's no smirking and grinning about the topic. Now it's starting to hit the mainstream. All right. Well, this was still 15 years, 20 years before the Pentagon rolled out in 2020 that they're real. We don't know what they are. And the whistleblowers, y'all come on out. We won't fire you. We won't kill you. We won't kill your family. Come on out and speak your mind. And they are. Here they come. And it's like, oh, shock and surprise. We have alien craft with bodies inside. Yeah. I don't know who you're reading for source, but if you don't know that, you're not any kind of ufologist, and you shouldn't be heading up a federal program. Okay? They act like they just started studying this in 2020. Hokum.
Which brings us into our modern time. Here we are. Spacecrafts, unidentified objects in the air. Are they real or are they Memorex? You like that? Did you get the
Can
metaphor?
you can't tell the difference?
It's been a while since I heard that reference.
Real or Memorex?
Remember Aretha Franklin did one of those, didn't she?
Yeah.
And didn't she break a glass?
Thank you.
And the Memorex broke the glass too.
Yep.
That was as effective marketing as jumping on the bed with a glass of red wine for Tempur-Pedic.
Oh yeah, this is true.
Who would even think it? That person got a big fat bonus.
The big fatty. Yep.
Yeah. So, questions for the audience. What did we have?
Yeah. Do we have anything? Do you guys want to ask any questions?
Yeah. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, we got 20 minutes left of the show, and we want to hear from you guys. If not, we're going to roam right into what we're.
If not, we're just going to free associate to beat the band. That's what I do best.
And that's what we're going to do. If the question, oh, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
All right, Keith. Let me see what Keith's got here.
Yeah, Keith says he's experienced an abduction and has an implant in his right thumb with an X-ray to prove it.
There it is.
I know Keith, and I can vouchsafe for his sanity and his truthfulness.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
And we have some friends, Jean, you and I, that are mutual, that have many experiences because we have many friends that are connected. One of them being the late, great Kevin Malik and Jennifer Malik that had their, my God, Kevin was an encyclopedia. That man is and was brilliant. So just mad props to them. We had them on their show. We had them on the network for a bit as a rebroadcast. And absolutely, Keith. But I want to give that little shout out because it's a little tribute to Kevin as well. Now,
yeah, they're very special people to me, Kevin and Jen, and I'm happy to shout them out. And I know that Kevin is around. He's not hung up about being here, but he checks in periodically, and he's sending love to all of us, and especially Jen. And Jen has given me some excellent psychic readings in the past, and vice versa. So I'm very grateful that we shared the incarnation for as long as we did, and that Jen and I at least can continue traveling together for a while longer.
There it is. Well said. I love that. I love that word. I love it.
Can you see this?
There it is.
Can you see this?
Yeah.
Can you read it? Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar. I told you so. I know I'm
Daggett? I was trying to get you.
I'm waving it around a bit. This is a meme going around social media. And it's a picture of, it's a photograph, a nice, more modern picture of Bob Lazar. one of the first insider whistleblowers. And it says ITYS. I told you so. That's all it says. Now I don't, and it's showing that he said it with double quotes. It's not clear that he actually literally said this, but the sentiment is valid. I told you so. And this is true of any UFO engineer, firsthand eyewitness, someone with an implant like Keith. This is true of anyone who's taken the topic seriously and didn't believe the psyop that you must be crazy if you believe in UFOs. My family ran that psyop on me. Thank you very much. I got so tired of being labeled nutty because I could read government documents, even highly redacted, and figure out what WTF is going on.
Right.
And I want to shout out Eric von Däniken.
Okay.
Because he was a huge influence on my research and thinking, and he was from a family of hoteliers. His dad ran hotels. This man was as much a civilian scientist as you could get. And he was spilling the beans on stuff before anybody else was. This is one of my favorite pictures. I crowded in on a selfie with Eric von Däniken against his will before a workshop at a convention. It's terrible lighting. Terrible lighting. Oh, terrible, terrible. I don't know that you can see it, but I don't think you can see it. In any event, I crowded in, and it's a good thing. After the workshop, 6 people got pictures with him, and there were 40 people in the room. But he's the man. He's the man. He's one of the men. But
Now,
he wrote a book, Chariots of the Gods, which when it hit the stands was sensational. It was sensational because he began to make the topic of UFOs and other things like the Nazca lines. He was the first really to introduce these topics into mainstream publication and therefore mainstream consideration and debate, right? Correct. Then we had at the same time books like Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, if you don't mind my saying, a fairly superficial treatment of astrology. And I am an astrologer, so I'm in a position, in my opinion, I'm in a good position to evaluate this. Yes, she hit a popular nerve, and everybody, well, not everybody, many people have interest in easy astrology. Astrology is hard. It's very mathy. It's very complex. There's a lot of variables to really get into it, and because it is so complex and variable, it when applied correctly, when interpreted correctly, it can be very effective. It can be very true, just as any sort of searching tool can be. Right. So she's publishing Sun Signs, and we've got all kinds of pop stuff going on. Carl Sagan was advocating for NASA and space exploration. All the stuff was going on at the same time. Betty and Barney Hill story came out in 1965, 4 years after it happened in 1961. Mm-hmm. And so everything was shifting and changing. And then in politics, all the peace speakers got killed one by one, assassinated one by one. I don't need to enumerate them. If you're a student of history, you know exactly what I'm talking about, with a warning from JFK before he was shot that we need to beware the secret societies. And that after Eisenhower had warned on his way out. Remember, Eisenhower had Eisenhower had given the green light on basically militarizing the topic of UFOs and taking it from the public, the civilian domain. Mm-hmm. And on his way out, his very last public speech warned of the rise of the military-industrial complex. And he used those words, military-industrial complex. Beware the rise of the military. Back in, I think it was, I want to say it's 58 or 62 when he was elected. Either way, on either date, most average Americans would say, what is he talking about? I don't know what a military-industrial complex is. I don't know what that is. I'm a farmer. Or, I live in the suburbs.
Good old Virginia farm boys, right?
The farm boys. They pulled the Truman card. I don't know anything about it. I surround myself with smart people to tell me what to do. And Eisenhower, I think, was more clueful because he'd served in the theaters of battle. He was more clued in. He was more worldly. And probably otherworldly, because from his seat in the military, unlike Truman, from his seat in the Oval Office, I suspect Eisenhower knew firsthand about UFOs from his military service. And so he brought that knowledge into the Oval Office. And when he heard about the scholars studying UFOs, he's like, okay, study spuddy. We know they're here. Foo Fighters. I rest my case. And
Right.
he said, full speed ahead with Project Blue Book and continue debunking. Take out the peacekeepers. And what do we have now? We have the biggest export of the United States is, do you happen to know?
The biggest export?
Of the
Export.
United States? What do we make our money on in the United States now?
Well, I can tell you it's not tobacco.
Travelers, what is it? What's our main income source for corporate income? Anybody? 3, 2, 1. Armaments. We're the biggest arms manufacturer in the world. It's our leading source of income. Now, who manufactures arms? A handful of companies. Who are these companies? Contractors to the military. I'm just going to stop right there.
Well, Lockheed Martin, there's one.
Just going to stop right there.
You're just like, nope. Weapons. Oh, Audra's got that one. She dropped it. Bam, weapons. Yeah, I can see it. We can see your point.
So there was something I wanted to bring up that had to do with something we talked about recently. It was a beautiful little tie-in. Oh yeah, it was about where I asked you, getting ready for the show a few days ago, I asked you about a video that's going around social media about alleged ghostly activity or paranormal activity in this dude's apartment where doors are opening and closing. Fairly
Right.
typical stuff until he gets to disembodied hands banging on a patio door.
Yeah,
And then he turns the light on, they still bang, and then he opens the door and they stop. And you said this can all be achieved with projectors.
that's right. Yep,
It's an illusion, and that you recognize this with your background of stage magic, respect.
correct.
And you said furthermore that one real problem with such videos, even though they can be entertaining and spine chilling and thrilling, which is not bad, entertaining, right? The problem amongst serious ghost hunters is that they cast aspersions on the seriousness of your research. Right? You're not willy nilly like this. You're not fooling people. You're doing serious research with scientific instruments, with a
Yes.
good heart and a good soul. You're doing light work of a sort, right? You wouldn't fool people like that. It wouldn't be
You have a
ethical.
reputation. Exactly.
And it gives a bad name to the serious researchers in your field.
Agreed.
Research, if you will, that all of those chicken little stories, the sky is falling, the aliens are coming, even Orson Welles' brilliant radio production, which I admire just for its genius and its effect. It was so good. People really thought the Northeast, the New England states were being invaded. Seriously.
Yes.
I mean, at the time, most people in the United States lived on farms. A lot of people forget this. They lived on farms, and after the farm work was done, they gathered for dinner. And after dinner was done, they gathered in the living room around the radio, which looked like part of the furniture set. It was a big wooden cabinet. And the fancier the cabinet, the richer you were. It was a status symbol. And people gathered around the radio. Neighbors who didn't have radios came in. I mean, you were all on the party line anyway, the telephone party line. Y'all knew what was going on anyway. Come on over, we're going to listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And they had their shows, their programs. They started calling them shows. In vaudeville, stage performance, we had shows. We're going to the vaudeville show.
Right.
But after radio, it became programming. And that term went on into television, programming. And I'll tell you what, you talk about a tool for mind control. There ain't nothing better than television.
Nothing better.
And
Nothing
I watch plenty of television. I'm not anti-television. I watch television, but I'm selective in what I watch, and I take everything with a small Siberian salt mine. Right?
Right.
For truth.
Yes. But it's social media now. And we've gone from TV to social media.
Can't argue there. Well, what do you think? It's 45 past the hour. Have we reached a natural conclusion?
We have come to that point, yes. And I think the future is looking very bright, if I may.
Me too.
I would agree.
And I think this is going to be a wonderful thing that's coming. This was an amazing show, Jean. I cannot thank you enough again. Cannot. It is always a blessing and a pleasure to have you on.
I love you all so much. I love
We
what
love
you're
you.
doing. I love all the travelers. We don't have to agree.
No.
It's bittersweet to say goodbye, but I know we'll see each other again. One last opportunity to check out my book, which all came true. Anyway, they're real cases, not just made up. And if you want to stay in touch, Jean Broida at yahoo.com. It's been a real pleasure
Yahoo!
chilling with y'all.
As
Yes.
always, as always. Travelers and those like, thank you for sticking with us for the next 45 minutes. It has been an amazing, and this, like Rana and I said, we know what shows may need to be extended. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But-
Not surprised. I'd have been disappointed if it wasn't extended.
Well, I don't want to disappoint. I want to, in
So-
fact, we need to go now so I can leave them wanting more.
That is exactly.
That's
How
right.
can I miss you if you won't go away? Kind of thing.
You gotta go away, but you can come back, but you gotta go now.
That's right. I can't miss you if you won't leave.
That's right. Travelers and those alike, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Make sure to tune in to the shows tomorrow night and Tuesday night with Joni Templeton Skinner and Keith Ottersberg on Tuesday night.
He's back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, back.
Yeah.
We have Tuesday, we'll have Raven's Flock.
Raven.
Then we've got a lot of the other new shows getting ready to come out. Remember, find a way to get your mug. We want to know if you think you can find the name of that show. Other than that, we will see you on the other side. Now, Rhonda will not be here next Sunday, but we will have Mama Raven sitting in with me as we talk to Michael M. Cook and do some cryptic discussion.
I'm actually sorry I will miss that, but I will be on island time, and by this time, I may have island beverages in my system.
Cheers.
Let's hope. Let us hope, my dear.
And who knows? Maybe Robert will join me too next Sunday.
Nice. Yes.
Ooh.
Put that out there. Put it out
Now,
there.
which Robert are we talking?
My brother.
Oh, your brother.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've had the pleasure.
Yeah, oh, loves you to death. I'm surprised he's not on. He
I'm
might have
surprised
been
he's not
watching.
on too. I'm
But
surprised
you
he's
know
not
what?
on
We've
too.
had some problems with YouTube, so I don't know if the channel he's watching is not giving him permission to. He felt like maybe we banned him. I'm like, dude, we never banned you. Why would we ban you? We love you, man. So I don't know. Maybe he'll be on next Sunday and chit chat with me side by side. We'll see what happens. But
Always a
Rhonda, you
good
have an
time.
amazing vacation.
We will. Yeah, like
And
we
Jean?
are so looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And Gene, thank you so much again. Travelers, thank you so much. Continue to help each other. Continue to grow. Continue to uplift each other. And until then, we'll see you on the other side. May
Bye.
Everybody
May
be good
virtue-
humans this week. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. And may virtue be yours.